This is Rabbi Tobin. I apologize for the lighting behind me. We're on my phone instead of my normal laptop, but we are on page 23b in Zeb Orer, chapter 3 of Sanhedrin. Today is the 19th of November, and I apologize that I was out for a week, but we'll be back next week as well. So we're picking up with Amar Reb Elazar. Reb Elazar said, Vahu v'chad lefoslan, another vahu acher lefoslan, another comes to invalidate his witness. So remember we just did a topic about whether or not if I accept my father or your father as a witness, can I then retract it? And then the other half of that was not just my father, but an expert, right? So they were in the context of that. Okay, so Rabbi Elazar said that we're talking about a case where the litigant and another witness come to invalidate the other litigant's witness. That's what the read here is. And the Gemara says, Kol kamine, is it in his power, each one, noga be'edutahu, he's partial in his testimony. So, can your witness bring another witness to invalidate a witness? Right? Your witness was already involved in the case. So how can he now come and be involved in some procedural motion to undermine a conflicting witness? Right? Can he be one of those people? So normally to invalidate a witness, you need two unrelated witnesses to come to the court and to testify to the court that that witness could not possibly have seen what he or she just saw. Okay, the classic way of creating an Eid Zomem is for you to testify that they were with you in Atlantic City that weekend. They couldn't possibly have seen what was happening in West Orange. That's the classic case. So now they're saying maybe one of my witnesses is going to testify with someone else that he saw your witness in Atlantic City. Right? And that raises a question about too many hats this guy's wearing. He's nogea b'davar, okay? Kol kamine noga be'edutahu. Amar Rav Acha berei de Rav Ika. Acha, the son of Ika, said, Kagon shekara alav ar. It's talking about a case like where he said that he had some kind of flaw, some kind of thing in him where, it wasn't that he was in the wrong place, but there's something essential to him that makes him so that he's partial or something. And the Gemara says, ar demai. So what would this disqualifying flaw be? Ilema ara de gazlanuta. If you're saying that he's a thief, he's disqualified for having been a thief. And remember, the category of thief isn't just someone who steals your stuff, like the herdsman of the small flocks and so forth. Is somebody who is presumed to be a thief because the flocks are grazing somebody else's land. This is a pretty large category. Kol kamine, the litigant is empowered to invalidate them. Noga be'edutahu, but he's partial in his testimony, so that's the question. Are you going to say it's about gazlanut? Ella, so he's not going to say, look, my witness is going to disqualify your witness. How is he going to do it? He's going to say he wasn't there because he was knocking off the bank with me that day. Right? So if he's testifying about gazlanut to throw him out, the only way he would know about him being a robber is if he was involved in the robbery. So he would also be nogea b'davar. He'd be involved in his own testimony somehow, and you can't do that. Ela arar de pagam mishpacha. Rather, the disqualifying flaw needs to be a pagam mishpacha, meaning they have it here as a blemished lineage. He's like a mamzer or something. So he's a person whose family lineage is bad. There's something that makes him disqualified. I don't know if the mamzer would necessarily do. I'm saying it's something in his lineage that disqualifies him. So maybe it's just straight mishpacha. He's mishpacha to somebody, but the word here is pagam. Pagam means bad, blemished, wounded, something like that.
But why would the family be the one that the name of the family or deeds of the family be disqualifying the person? The person is not the family that was part of the family, or she.
Well, remember, this is coming from a clan kind of group mentality. So families had yichus. Families had standing. So if there's something like within the family that is bad, it could carry over to a person. Now I know we also have in the Torah the sins of the fathers not on the sins of the sons and all that.
That's what I'm thinking.
This is a moment in logic. This is not like a principle that we need to live by.
Okay.
They've just said if it's gazlanut, he was involved. Maybe it's pagam mishpacha. Now they're going to look at pagam mishpacha. It's probably not going to last very long.
Okay.
Okay? So they said rather it's pagam mishpacha, blemished lineage. Rabbi Meir Savar, Rabbi Meir maintains that he can disqualify witnesses this way. Hani amishpacha ka masahadeh ve'ihu memela ka fasel. These witnesses, meaning the guy suing and his partner, will testify directly regarding the family of the opposing witness, and the witness is disqualified as an indirect growth of the testimony. Look at the note, please, note 11, because it's weird in the Hebrew, so it's not coming out clear. Since the litigant's testimony does not pertain specifically to the witness testifying against him, but to the witness's family as a whole, in regard to whom he has no interest in disqualifying, his testimony is valid. So the point is, if it were about gezel, if it was about robbery, my testifying against the witness is not going to be believed because the only way I could know that is if I'm also a robber and now I'm not able to testify. So on the basis of gezel, I can't disqualify you. So ironically, we both wind up in good standing in the court, right? But if I testify that he's from bad mishpacha, I'm not testifying about him, and I'm not a part of his mishpacha. I'm kind of disqualifying the family as a whole. I'm not after him. I have no invested thing in him. So the fact that I'm suing him or he's suing me or he's testifying against me personally doesn't matter because I'm really not doing anything personal against him. I'm testifying about the status of his family, which only indirectly disqualifies him. So therefore my testimony will be believed and he would be removed. Or not. And that's the argument between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim. Remember I had the chart up there before, Rabbi Meir versus Chachamim, and getting rid of one witness, getting rid of two witnesses. Remember that? That's what we're still on. It's almost over, though. Rabbanan Savare, but the rabbis maintain, sof nogea be'edutahu, even in this case, if you're making any testimony that's going to disqualify a witness who is testifying against you, you're involved in it. You can't do that, right? So you can't have yourself or your witness testify against your opponent's witness. You're too involved, no matter what the case is. That's the rabbi's point of view. Rabbi Meir, who seems to allow this, remember, he was allowing this guy to get rid of that guy's judge, this court to get rid of that guy's court. We've always had Rabbi Meir allowing all kinds of people to get disqualified, which would just destroy the judicial process. Chachamim are against every interpretation of the argument. So this interpretation of the argument says it's about disqualifying each other's witnesses. Rabbi Meir says you can do it even if you're involved, but not directly. And Chachamim say, no, you can never do it. Okay? Except in the cases named only in the Mishnah. New topic. Ki ata Rav Dimi amar Rabbi Yochanan. When Rav Dimi came, remember Dimi came from where? From Israel to Babylon. So he's one of the first rabbis who brings the traditions from the land of Israel to the land of the Talmud. All right, so machloket b'shtei kitei edim. He says that the dispute is a case where one litigant claims to have two sets of witnesses to prove his claim. For the time being, he produces only one set. So Rabbi Meir savart sarich levarer. So Rabbi Meir says the litigant must substantiate his claim and produce a second set. So in this scenario, we're saying who can you disqualify or not disqualify? It's where you say, what are the two in the Mishnah? You have to go and, this one does one, and then the two of them choose a third or something like that. There's going to be an interpretation here where the two is a second set of witnesses. Remember, right? So you have a set of witnesses, and he claims he has a second set of witnesses. But he's going to disqualify the first set because he has a second set. And maybe he shouldn't be allowed to do that. Maybe if he's going to claim two sets, he has to produce two sets.
So that each side should be able to claim a second set.
If he has a second set, right? So in other words, I only need two witnesses to prove something in court. But if when I walk into the court, I say, I actually have two different sets of witnesses, I've now made a claim, right? So my claim is either true or false. And the fact that I'm claiming the facts of the case based on only one of the sets that I say I have has now become complicated. The fact that I said I have a second set also is part of my claim.
So you're saying
Now you got 4 witnesses, 2 sets of 2,
Okay.
right? And am I disqualifying one of those sets?
Would it be necessary to
Mayor
disqualify
may not. Rabbi Mayor may not. Yes.
But would it be, what I'm trying to understand now, is this saying that the second set of witnesses disqualifying the first or bringing additional evidence to support the original claim?
At this moment, the interpretation is that Rabbi Meir says one guy has 2 sets of witnesses supporting the one guy's case.
Okay, so it's supporting the testimony, not contradicting.
Okay? Consequently, the opposing litigant is believed together with another witness to disqualify the first set if the second set's not there. So Rabbi Meir says the guy came in and he has 2 sets of witnesses, but he only produced 1.
So you can only,
In that case, the opposing litigant can disqualify his first set of witnesses because he didn't bring the second.
but that means that he can look with no witnesses.
Well, that would leave him with the ability to still theoretically bring his second set,
Oh, okay.
right? So it really hasn't undermined his case, but he didn't prove his claim, which is that I have 2 sets. He should have kept his mouth shut,
He should have kept his
Yeah.
mouth shut, yeah. What
Right?
did he say in the first place?
and brought 1 set, and if they got, and then they can't get disqualified, right? Okay. But people they're not always assumed to be gaming the system, right? The rabbis are gaming the system constantly in the logic, but the people inside are presumed not to be gaming the system. Okay, Rabbanan Savre Eino Tzarich Levarer, but the rabbis say you don't need to substantiate the claim to bring the second set, so the opposing litigant may not testify against the first set because he's interested in the parties, just like me testifying against the opposing witness, right? So if there's a second set out there, you can testify against the first set because the case doesn't hinge on them. So if you know something wrong about them, you can testify and have them thrown out because the second set can still come. But if there's not a second set, you can't testify against the opposing witnesses to get them thrown out because you're involved in the case and you're going to get scot-free off the case by doing that. So you have an investment in them being wrongfully excused. But if there's another set hanging out there, you don't have an investment in wrongfully excusing them because you don't think you're going to win the case by doing it. So you're presumed to be telling the truth and not gaming the system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not saying if you agree with how they're evaluating human nature, but you understand what they just said.
Well, it's being very, very generous, I think.
If there's another set out there, so the set who's testifying against me right here is not going to determine the outcome of the case, and I know something about them that makes them not kosher, even though they're testifying against me, and you would think it's in my self-interest to get them disqualified. So I might be lying, or I'm involved in the case, I'm not objective, I have to recuse myself from that conversation if I'm going to be ethical, all that stuff. Since there's another set out there who can convict me, then I'm not thinking that getting rid of them is going to swing the case, so I can get rid of them, because I can be believed to testify against them, because they're not the thing that's really swinging the case. It's another
Yeah, but that's
group of them.
believing that the other litigant does have a second set, because he hasn't brought it to court yet.
He says he has 2 sets, he only brought 1. Now, if he lies and said he has 2 sets to try and seem like he's got, 100 people saw this, I can bring another set of witnesses tomorrow. And the judges say, okay, so we'll disqualify these, bring the other witnesses. If he was just bragging and he can't produce them, he's out of luck.
Is that a lot, major?
Right. Okay? Very good. All right, so that's another way that Rebbe Meir and the rabbis might be disagreeing about why you can or can't eliminate the other person's witness. Okay. Aval, bechat achat divrei hakol ein yachol lefoslan. And in this interpretation, everybody would agree that if there's only 1 set of witnesses, you cannot testify against them and have them thrown out. Okay? That's what's left. Now, this law is clarified as Rabbi Dimi proceeds with his report. So Rabbi Dimi is coming in from the west, and he's got something else that he's brought as a tradition for us to discuss. Amru lefanav Rav Ami v'Rav Asi. So Rav Ami and Rav Asi said before Rabbi Yochanan, Ein sham ela katachat mahu. So if there's only 1 set of witnesses, what's the law? So again, this particular chapter of Talmud seems to be doing this a lot. It's going to do a complex case, and then you realize afterwards the reason you just studied that is because there's a clear case on the same topic. But if you did the clear case first, you'd have nothing else to say. So they do the complex case first to bring up the topic in a weird way you're not prepared for, and then you get some form of a clear teaching afterwards that actually does the thing that they were only guessing at in the complex case.
But the Mishnah was clear.
Well, the Mishnah was clear, but if you take that attitude, you'd never have Talmud.
But I mean, they're coming back to the Mishnah's ruling.
Eventually, yeah.
This is like putting someone on a double black ski slope and say, here, you figure this out, let me go on the bunny.
Yeah, look how easy the bunny hill would be, right?
It's crazy.
Exactly. It's like starting someone on a 12-string guitar. Okay. Okay, so Mahu. Now, the Gemara, I love this note. The Gemara is mystified by the question.
Where are we again, by the way?
I'm on 23b2, and I'm on the right-hand column, at the top. Okay? Ein sham ela kat echad. So the Gemara comes back in response to Rav Ami and Rav Asi before Rabbi Yochanan as being quoted by Rav Dimi. And they say, how could they ask that question? Which is basically what Stan just did. The mission was clear, right? Ein sham ela kat echad. How could there be more than one set? Are you kidding me? V'ha marta, or ha amrinan, depending on your manuscript. But behold, you said, or we say, aval b'chat echat divrei hakol ein yachol lefoslan. We just said, but if there is more than one, all agree. I mean, if there is only one, all agree that he cannot declare them to be unfit, right? So we know that. Ein ela kat echad. We know that there's only one. But how can you say that there's only one? I'm sorry. How can you say that there's only one when the conclusion was, but if there's only one, they don't argue? You can't say that the whole thing was only about one if the conclusion is, if there's only one, they didn't argue. Because if I say, if I only have one child, if I only had one child, we would be happy. You learn from that two things. I have more than one child, and we're not happy. Right? That's how the Gemara thinks. So if the conclusion of the last argument was, if there's only one, everyone agrees, then we know that there are cases where there's more than one. Because we know they didn't always agree.
More than one set of witnesses.
Right.
Clear witness.
Okay, well, I was keeping it simple because this language doesn't use the word witness here. V'chat echad, one pair. Okay, so how can, what do you mean there's only one? Why would we say if there's only one, everybody agrees? So Rav Ami and Rav Asi's question is rephrased. So Dimi, I guess, is going to rephrase what he said. Ella nimtzeit kat shniya krovim o fesulin. Rather, he meant to say, what is the law, mahu, if the second set was disqualified to be relatives or ineligible? Mahu. What is the law according to Rabbi Meir? So if you have two sets,
Right.
and the second set is being disqualified, not the first, right? We were always saying that he has two sets, the first set's being disqualified, now you can go to the second. But if the second set is disqualified, would Rabbi Meir still allow you to disqualify the first set after, or not? Right? Are you only allowed to disqualify one set if it's the first set, or are you only allowed to disqualify one set even if it's the second set? What if it's the second set you're disqualifying? What's the law for Rabbi Meir? Okay? So, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said to Rav Ami and Rav Asi, Kavar heidu edim harishonim. Who cares if the second set gets disqualified? The first set already testified. And the Torah says, Al pi shnaim yakum devar. Once two people have testified on something, done. It's established. The court has proven the fact, because witnesses have testified. So I might have another 98 witnesses who I disqualify, and it doesn't mean a darn thing, because I had two who testified, I'm done. That's Rabbi Yochanan's view. So of course you could disqualify them, but who cares? Ikata Amrei, but there are others who say, Amar Rav Ashi, that Rav Ashi said, Kvar heidu edim arishonim, the first witnesses have already testified. So this is just whether Rabbi Yochanan said this to them or whether Rav Ashi said this to them, but that's the conclusion. All right? Moving on. The Gemara attempts to identify the dispute of whether a litigant must substantiate his claim to have additional witnesses with a similar dispute found elsewhere. So, does the litigant substantiate his claim to have additional witnesses is a topic that shows up in more than one place in the Gemara. So they're going to try and now draw analogies from some other case to help us understand this particular Mishnah. And granted, we have gone far afield from the Mishnah. Our actual original Mishnah was much simpler than all of this, and this is not how the process really works. But they're really running the logic through every potential reinterpretation of the case, and what would Meir and Chachamim believe if the case were reinterpreted this way, if it were reinterpreted that way. Okay.
Do you think that these are just hypothetical?
Yes.
They may have happened.
No.
They happen.
No. And when you're in the stam of the Gemara, when you're in the editor's level of the logical piecing things together in the Gemara, it's not real law anymore. But when you have the rabbis quoted, that's real law. I think they were actually judges in courts ruling over people, and this is how they did it. Once you start putting them next to each other and doing all kinds of logistical calisthenics around it, right? And you're doing like logical brain teaser exercises, I don't think that you're in a court of law anymore. I think that you're in the university or the yeshiva setting, and people are just doing logic games. Okay? Now, those logic games themselves might generate principles that will inform a future court in determining the law. So the logic games aren't without merit or influence.
Theoretical physics and then application physics.
Correct. So you kind of go from reality into the stam, which comes back into reality again. So you have Mishnah, Talmud, and then you have halacha. Right? And the halacha will be based on what came out of the logical arguments of the Talmud. It's not all, footloose, fancy, free entertainment. It has a real impact. But the vast majority of what's on the page here will be irrelevant to the future halacha. Okay, here we go. Are we to say, so, Nema ki flugda de Rabbi v'Rabbanan Shimon ben Gamliel kami palge. So, are we going to say that the rabbis and Rabbi Meir are disagreeing on a dispute between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel? So, this is going to be the way we set it up. We got four guys. Okay? So, we have Rabbi Meir. And we have the Chachamim, the versus the rabbis. We're going to call them the sages. And is this analogous equals question mark? So Rabbi Meir is to the sages as, and he's, when you have just rabbi, it means Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who is the editor of the Mishnah, versus Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who is actually his teacher, but that doesn't matter. So, is this going to be analogous? Is he to he as he is to he? Is his disagreement to him analogous to his disagreement to him? That's going to be the question. Okay?
The sages usually win over Meir.
In halacha,
Would Gemara-
they usually win, and he usually wins, which is going to be a problem. Because if it's him to him and they win, and it's analogous to him, but he wins, how can that be analogous?
Would the equation be with Rabbi Shimon Gamliel on the numerator?
You could, but that's not how they set it up.
Oh, okay.
That's not the order they set it up in. So they set it up specifically as Rabbi Meir to sages, as Rabbi to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel. But we already know that the person who gets the halacha is on the wrong side of that to be an exact ratio. So I can already anticipate, without even learning the Baraita, that this isn't going to work. But I only know that because of this, right? Because looking in from the outside, from kind of how editing gets put together, this isn't an effective way to edit a text to have a clear analogy. Something's going to give. All right, but let's see what they do.
What? Yeah, but it's meant to be wrong. That's the point.
Correct. So the question is, Nema, shall we say, Nomar, shall we say that the argument of Rabbi and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is what they, Meir and Chachamim, are arguing about. Ditanya, because it's taught in a Mishnah age Baraita. Okay? Now 23b3, the first words of 23b3 in the Schottenstein publication. Haba lidun bishtar uva chazakah. An occupant of a property comes to litigate with the original owner concerning the property's ownership and asserts that he can prove his case by producing both a deed and a witness to a chazakah. So, there's a lot of words that have been added in there, and let me explain a few things. Haba lidon is coming to a dayan. You come to a judge, ladun, for judgment. So, a person has come into a court, meaning he has brought a formal lawsuit. What about shtar and chazakah? So, a shtar means there's a written document that he believes will prove his case. For a document to be legitimate, it has to have been entered into by both parties knowingly in front of witnesses who have signed it. It's a contract in front of witnesses who have signed it. Okay? So the only way to uproot a shtar is to invalidate the witnesses on the shtar. Right? Because presumably the shtar stands by itself. You can't say he didn't give me the coat. I have witnesses who say he did.
What's chazakah?
A chazakah, or a chazaka, as we say in Yiddish,
Yeshiva.
right, in the yeshiva, is a legal presumption regarding something. So there's certain circumstances that the presumption is this is the person who will win the case, right? So if you are holding a talit and I am sitting near you and I tell the judge, that's my talis, you have a chazakah that it's your talis, because it's in your possession. Right? You don't have proof that it's your talis, but you have a chazakah that it's your talis.
Does that come from the word strength?
Chizuk, yeah.
Chizuk.
Lechazek, yeah. It's to strengthen. You have a presumption, you have a strong inclination, a strong presumption that this is what the case is. And in the case of monetary matters, it's hamotzi chavaro alav hu araya. If you are trying to get money out of someone else's hand in a court, you're the one who has to bring the proof, right? So whoever's trying to move something out of someone else's possession is the one who has to bring the proof. So there's a chazakah in those cases. It's on somebody to bring the proof because somebody else has a chazakah. Now the chazakah may also be established by witnesses. Right? So there may be witnesses, so I may have witnesses who come and say, you know what, I saw Stan wear that talis for 20 years. Does that mean it's Stan's talis? No. But it means people have seen you with it a lot. So they may not have established your ownership, but they've established a chazakah. Right? So you can also have witnesses who are establishing something that's only a chazakah.
Doesn't chazakah in modern Hebrew mean other things? I have a dim recollection that it's like your seat and shoe.
Yeah, you have a presumed ownership over that seat in shul. I have a chazakah to do the maftir on second day of Rosh Hashanah. Right? I have been doing second day Rosh Hashanah for 20 years. If they don't ask me to do the maftir on second day Rosh Hashanah, I will be offended to my dying day because I had a chazakah. So one of the things that I try and do is whenever given an opportunity to break a pattern, you will notice I break the pattern. So when I came here, we had 12 people holding Torahs at Kol Nidre.
Yeah,
Right? We're down to 5.
I didn't even notice.
Exactly. Because I didn't take anybody's chazakah away from them. But as somebody got ill or moved away or died, I didn't replace that Torah holder with a new person because now I got another 20 years of someone thinking he's got a chazakah.
I didn't know that.
Right? We used to do lots and lots of hosafot on the high holidays in the Torah readings.
Right.
I'm down to 2 on one day and only 1 on the other days. And nobody has noticed. But my God, if I take an aliyah away from somebody on Yom Kippur, whoa, I'll be killed because they have a chazakah. Do they have a legal right to it? Absolutely not. And in the case of a hosafah on Yom Kippur, you may not have a right to it at all.
Right.
because you're not supposed to do a Hasof on Yom Tov. So, but they have a chazaka. Okay? Good. All right. I got lots of people watching. Oh, my goodness. That's because I'm on my own website. So we are on Zet Borer, Chapter 3, Sanhedrin. Okay, so in the Schottenstein 23, B3, on the right. So, what did we just say? Lo, Eliba de Rabbi? Is that where we were? Oh, no, we just read the Baraita on the left. Okay, that's Divrei Rebbe. So the words of, let's do it at the beginning of the Baraita. Habali dun bishtar b'chazaka. So the person comes, and he comes to litigate his case with a document and with a chazaka. Divrei Rebbe, these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel Omer, nidun b'chazaka. He says he's adjudged by the chazaka. So you have this argument. The guy comes, and he has a shtar, and he has a chazaka. Two different ways to prove his case. So what is this like?
Two witnesses.
It's like in the last interpretation of Rabbi Meir, having two sets of witnesses. I have two effective ways to prove my case. I'm bringing them both. According to this Baraita, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, you go by the chazakah.
I think it would be the written document rather than the traditional.
Which is probably why we need a Baraita, because you would have thought something different than this. Okay? All right. The Havenim ba. And we question this, all right? B'chazakah v'lo b'shtar, that's your question. You would judge according to the chazakah and not by the written document, the formal document that people signed, right? That makes no sense. Ella ema af b'chazakah. Rather, he should have said not nidun b'chazakah, but you should have said nidun af b'chazakah. We can prove it even by a chazakah, although, of course, the shtar would have been better. Which doesn't really answer the point that the Baraita said he has both.
And then this is stronger.
All right, now, remember, we're going to try and get at this concept of eliminating that second set of witnesses when the first set has testified. So is this...
Even though this feels stronger,
Yeah.
the first set of witnesses feels stronger.
So you start to anticipate where we're going to go with this. All right? And so if Rabbi and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, that dispute is whether or not the guy has to establish that he has both proofs. Remember, they said the argument between Rabbi Meir and Chachamim was if he says he has two sets of witnesses but he didn't bring them both, can they invalidate the first? Right? And the idea is, Rabbi Meir says you can always invalidate. The Chachamim would have allowed invalidating the first there because it doesn't hinge on them because you still have the second set out there. Here, where you have a shtar and a chazakah, can you invalidate one? If it's analogous, the Chachamim would say you can invalidate one because you still have the other to prove it on. And Rabbi Meir would say you can invalidate either one. Doesn't matter.
What's the story?
A shtar is a document. A legal contract is a presumption that that person's going to win. That can be established by witnesses saying stuff that, I saw you driving this car around town for the last 10 years.
Chazakah is witness-oriented, a star is...
Chazakah can be witness-oriented. A shtar is signed by witnesses on a document. Okay, law. No, the Gemara is going to say that's not the case. It's not analogous to the Meir Chachamim thing about the two sets of witnesses. And why is it not? Aliba de Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, kule alma lo plige. According to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, who says af bechazakah or just nadun bechazakah, he says you're just going to take that second thing. According to Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, no one, even Rabbi Meir, would dispute that in the instance of our Mishnah, the litigant does not need to produce the second set. So, in other words, since the two sets of witnesses are basically the same thing, then nobody would think you have to produce that second set. It makes no sense.
So that's what we just learned.
So the analogy to this case wouldn't be shtar and chazakah. It would be shtar and shtar. or chazakah and chazakah. Because there's no reason to bring a second set of witnesses that'll say the same thing as the first set of witnesses. It's absolutely identical. As opposed to shtar and chazakah are two different things. But if I say I have two copies of the shtar, why are you going to make me bring the second copy of the shtar if you can see the first copy? Right? So there's a difference. So according to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, nobody, not even Rabbi Meir, would have said, would dispute in the instance of our Mishnah that he need not produce a second set of witnesses. Ki plige. When would they disagree then? Aliba de Rebbe, according to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, de Rabbi Meir karebi. For Rabbi Meir simply agrees with Rebbe and requires the litigant to substantiate the claim. Right. So Rebbe says you need to have the shtar and the chazakah. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says just the chazakah or even the chazakah. Right? Is fine. Either one's fine. But Rabbanan, Amrei lach, but the rabbis would say to you that they would agree that our ruling regarding a litigant who claimed to have two sets of witnesses, you only need one. Okay? That's how they're trying to make the analogy. Adkan lo kamar Rabbi Hatam ella b'chazakah. So far, Rabbi has only said that the person has to establish himself when he has a chazakah. De mikoach shtara kate, because a document by itself is always good. So they're going to say when Rabbi says that he brings shtar and chazakah and he has to prove them both, he doesn't really mean if he has the shtar, he has to prove the chazakah. It means if he has the chazakah, he also has to prove the shtar. Because the shtar is good enough by itself. A document always wins. The fact that there's a chazakah out there isn't going to do anything for you. That's what they're saying here. Aval hacha, but here, in the case of the two sets of litigants in our Mishnah, here means our Mishnah, Dahane edim, lav mikoach edim acharina katu, the effectiveness of the witnesses of the litigant does not come from the other witnesses. All right? Afilu Rabbi Modeh de'ein sarich levarer. You would not need to substantiate the case by bringing the second set of witnesses. Okay, it's a little convoluted, but the basic concept is a shtar always proves itself, a set of witnesses always proves itself. So, like I said, it did not work out. Rabbi Meir said, in two sets or one, you can disqualify the witnesses. The Chachamim said, it's only in two sets because you still have one. Okay? Rabbi Meir, you can wind up without any witnesses for him, either way. Rebbe said, when we finally finished interpreting it, that you need the doc, and then if you want, you can have the chazakah. Meaning, you can have one. You can invalidate one. Right? You can get rid of this if you want, you still have this. Although they noted you can't really get rid of that. Right? Whereas the Chachamim are going to say, you can go with the Chazakah, but if you know you have both, you have to bring both. Shimon ben Gamliel said that. So you're going to wind up with the two again. Right? So it's not an exact thing, and it doesn't really work as an analogy. Because in this case, you really have the weight of the document is what's driving both forces of logic. And here, you have a genuine disagreement over what you're allowed to do if you have a single set or two sets. So here it's going to default towards the document for both of them, and here they have a genuine difference of agreement if one of the two things is present or if two of the two things is present. So the analogy does not work as we anticipated it would not. Okay?
Right.
I have broken many of your heads. I see people scratching their heads and looking for an exit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are, this was all monetary disputes.
Monetary is the easiest, but they're not all monetary.
They could be.
Could be monetary property, but it also could be
Well, it was an attempt to keep them out of the secular courts where you said you didn't want to go in the first.
You don't want to be in a Roman court.
Yeah,
you know.
they get treated worse but there must, others.
But you don't want to be in a Roman court because ideally you consider Torah to be the highest authority.
You want to keep it in it, yeah.
No, you want to do what God wants.
All right.
You want to go by God's law.
And there are still courts today, let's say in Brooklyn and Williamsburg, that are still
Yes.
debating this.
Yes.
This would still be.
You can go to a Beit Din today and the law will be adjudicated for you according to Talmudic law.
According to the Talmud, yeah.
Absolutely. But you need to sign away your civil rights to do
I'm
that.
saying, no matter what the result is, I will not go to civil court.
The civil court is unlikely to accept the ruling of a Beit Din. The two people have to be willing to accept the Beit Din for the Beit Din to have power in this society. Because the civil court is going to say the law of the land is the law of the land. Your religious stuff is well and good, but if you've broken a law of the land, we're still going to try you. Right? Yeah.
Okay, so from what I can figure out what you're saying is, in one situation, it's considered superfluous to have both sets, but in another situation, you have to bring both if you have both. So which is it?
Right, that's why the analogy doesn't work. In the case of witnesses, they are identical forms of proof. So the question is, can you eliminate one of them if you know you have the other, or not? That's what drove that logic. In the second case, they're not equal forms of proof. A star really is a more powerful form of proof, but a chazakah is good enough to get the job done. But if you've got them both, boy, are you going to want to see that star. And that's really what they're doing, right? So you can rule according to chazakah, but there's no way, if you have the option, that you would choose that.
But shtar still could be overturned if they can invalidate.
If the witnesses on the star are not valid,
That could also come back to the
Yes.
to the here.
yes.
Even though you have a second set, they could still invalidate your first set, and you may need that set.
So Ron has discovered a line of logic that the Stam of the Gemara did not pursue.
Thank
Wh-
goodness.
Which is what happens if you invalidate the star, and what would Rabbi Meir and Chachamim have thought about that, working it back into the Mishnah. That they didn't do that. This analogy is our Mishnah Meir Chachamim argument analogous to Rebbe and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel? And the answer to the question is not similar enough cases to make the analogy solid, and we're going to drop it, and we're going to try and find another way to think of the Meir Chachamim argument. Okay? Somebody obviously taught a seminar for an entire year on Meir Chachamim, and it wound up here. Right? The idea that you've got 5 different ways to do Meir Chachamim on the Mishnah, there's a lot of material out there. All right, Gemara suggests another way for the explanation of the disputes in the Mishnah regarding disqualifying judges and witnesses. All right. Ki ata Ravin, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. When Ravin came. So notice we had Dimi, right? And Avi, and now we've got Ravin. This is a case that we are receiving multiple reports out of Israel that this is a live situation. That can you or can't you disqualify witnesses and judges and under what circumstances? So I would presume that the system of jurisprudence in some way, there's a conflict that's being settled in Israel, and they're trying to set up courts under the new yeshivot in Bavel. And they're trying to receive briefings and reports on what has been happening in Israel and how they should or shouldn't be behaving in Bavel. Right? So you have a third wave now of information coming out of Israel. Kiata Ravin Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So Ravin came and he said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Reisha, the first part of the Mishnah, where Rabbi Meir permits the litigants to disqualify judges, be'edim pesulin v'dayanin kesherin. Oh boy, is where the witnesses are kosher, but the judges are not. Okay? Migo de fasli edim paslenami dayanim. But Rabbi Meir rules that since the litigant proved correct that the witnesses were disqualified, that the judges are likewise disqualified. Okay? So you have witnesses and judges all being treated in the beginning of the Mishnah, and the witnesses are not kosher, but the judges are kosher. Nevertheless, the whole court is thrown out, according to Rabbi Meir, by the reed of Ravin. Okay? Seifa, but the second half of the Mishnah, B'dayanim psulim ve'edim kesherim, is where the judges are not kosher, but the witnesses are. Okay? And the witnesses would remain eligible, they're kosher. Migo defasle dayanim fasle nami edim, but nevertheless, Rabbi Meir says that since now the judges are disqualified, the witnesses are also disqualified. That's what Ravin says, Rabbi Yehuda said about the Mishnah.
So then you're back to square one.
Correct, which is why it gets rejected immediately. So that whole idea of Ravin is now going to get rejected. Matkifle Rava. Rava, the head of the most important yeshiva in Bavel, it stares down the bench at Ravin and says, Bishlema migo defasli edim fasli nami dayanim. It's understandable to say that if the witnesses were found ineligible, then you can also get rid of the judges. Ika beidina achrina, because there's always another judge, another court you can go to. Right? So here's what happens. The witnesses are disqualified, and you declare like a hung jury or a mistrial. You declare a mistrial, and you dissolve the court. Remember, these are not full-time judges all the time, so now they're going to go back to their shoemaker shop. Right? The witnesses aren't here, you throw them out. The court's dissolved. No problem, because you're not really dissolving judges, you can always find more judges. All right? It doesn't matter, but Ikabe dina achrina. Ella migo defasle dayane fasle nami edim. But if you were to say that if the judges are ruled ineligible, you throw the witnesses out, that makes no sense. Vaha edim tuleka. Where are you going to get more edim from? So the edim are essential to the case. Right? So the edim have done nothing wrong.
What's AD?
Witnesses. So the witnesses have done nothing wrong. They're still valid. You can't dissolve the court while the testimony of kosher witnesses is still standing in front of you. Where are you going to? You're going to say now we're going to throw the judges and these witnesses out completely? And if you want to bring the court case, you got to bring me new witnesses. Where are you going to get them from?
Right.
They are the whole case. The merits of the case is not based on the judge. So if the merit of the case is bad, the witnesses are bad, throw the judge out. And if it turns out you have more evidence, you can get another judge. But if it's the judges that are the problem, how can you throw these witnesses out and never hear from them again? The miscarriage of justice would be insufferable. So the Gemara answers, Lo, tzricha. Remember tzricha?
Beginning of
You need it, right? So why do you need them both? Because tzricha de'ika kat acheret. You could know it's necessary where there is another set of witnesses in addition to the first set. So now, if the judges are no good, but the witnesses are kosher, and I have another set of
Yeah,
witnesses.
but it doesn't say that in the original Gemara, that he's got a second set of witnesses.
Correct. But the Gemara says it would be okay in the following case.
Oh.
If I have a second set, then I can throw out the first set when the judges are bad. So Ravina's not such an idiot. Remember, this is Rava staring down the bench at Ravina. What a stupid teaching that you're saying Rabbi Yehuda just taught. It makes no sense. You want me to throw out good witnesses because of bad judges? I'll throw out good judges because of bad witnesses, but I can't do the reverse. Right. And the Gemara comes in and says, no, it's in a case actually where there's two sets of witnesses.
Right. Well,
But that's not what Ravina said.
right.
Okay? So
I might have thought it.
the Stam is very active in this chapter. So the Stam sometimes is just organizing things. The Stam sometimes is driving the logic. The editor, the anonymous editor of the chapter, the Stam, is not staying quiet. Ha lekakat acheret mai. But if there's not another set of witnesses, then what would Rabbi Meir rule according to Ravina's read of Yehuda on the Mishnah? Hachinami delo matze fasle. Well, he would say, in fact, that the second person may not disqualify the first person's witnesses. Hainu de Rav Dimi. Well, there'd be no difference between that and what Rav Dimi said, right? Which was the first set of this whole kind of analogies. And Ika Benaihu Migo, but there is between the difference, the since, this argument, since he was found truthful, de Mar Savar Amrinan Migo. For the one master, Ravine maintains that we say Migo, and it works, and I'm going to tell you what a Migo is in a second. Umar Savar de La Amrinan Migo, we do not say the since principle. Okay, so Migo is another one of these logical terms, and it goes like this. If a guy says something that is believed, and it wasn't necessarily to his benefit, then you believe the next thing he says.
It's reliable.
He's reliable because he says things that hurt him.
Yeah.
He tells the truth, right? So Migo is a guy who's believed to tell the truth. He has done something in his testimony that proves that he's willing to tell the truth even against his own best interest, and therefore whatever else he says is believable, right? So if you put that logic in to believing the guy when he gets rid of that last set of witnesses or not, then you would believe that he's hurting himself. He's willing to hurt himself about this set of witnesses, therefore he's believable, right? That would turn the logic on all
We
of
had
this.
that earlier, didn't we, about the.
We did.
Person is believable.
We did. Okay, let's stop here, 24A1, and very soon we are actually going to get another Mishnah. So I think that on Monday we'll probably finish this section of the Gemara, and we'll get to 24A3, where we get the Mishnah about my father is acceptable or not, which it got brought in this section before. It anticipated the coming Mishnah.
We never
Okay.
get to the